My name is Peter Hussey. I'm Artistic Director of Crooked House Theatre Company. We're the organisation who are called the beneficiary organisation. We put this programme together and have been running it for the past week in Maynooth University in County Kildare. The programme is called Moltóir, which means mover. It's Irish word for mover, and it's mover in the sense of someone who moves, but also there's a sort of social and political element to that word, like someone who creates a movement, you know, or supports a movement for change or a movement to progress in some way. So the programme is funded by the European Union's Erasmus Plus program, and that's a funding mechanism that helps train youth workers, for example, or support young people to come together and do their own projects. It has a lot of different aspects to it. This one is called a mobility of youth workers. We brought together 60 youth workers, cultural youth workers from all over Europe and around Europe as well. Some of them have come from Azerbaijan and from Palestine, and the others come from within the European Union. They come from Beyond Buna, a large theatre company that works with young people in Austria, from Ashtar Theatre in Ramallah in Palestine, from FOCO, a theatre organisation that works with young people in Spain, and then from Pi Youth Association and Salt Theatre in Izmir in Turkey, Kinitiras in Greece. It's a dance network that makes projects with young and old people in Athens, and then the Greek Theatre in Education Network, which is spread all over the Greek area. And finally, Jugendkulturarbeit in Germany, in Oldenburg in Germany, they work with young people as well. So all of these people came together along with participants from Crooked House. We made a call and invited cultural youth workers from Ireland to come. And they've come from Cork, from Carlow, from all around the region around Maynooth, like Lucan, and from Newbridge. So all these people came together. We stay on campus, in the beautiful old campus, the South Campus of St. Patrick's College in Maynooth, which is part of Maynooth University. And we work here in these rooms, which are called Upper Loftus. They are still the same as when this place used to be a seminary for training young men to become priests. So there's a lot of Christian or Catholic iconography around the place, which you'll see in the workshops and in the videos. The rooms are spacious, bright and large, and they're very useful for this kind of training. The training program itself focuses on showing or working with young people using movement, whether it's walking and talking or some form of martial arts, or a more artistic, slow motion type of development of movement where they can express themselves using a mindfulness in movement, or devising in a non-verbal way, creating stories and ideas that concern them without necessarily having to speak, or how they can work slowly in a group, come together with strangers that they don't know, and use movement practices to help enhance groups. All of these are areas that we're looking at. And we're training people who actually work with young people. So the people you see here are those who are currently working with young people. We call them cultural youth workers in that they work in the area of culture, whether it's dance or theatre or music, whatever area it is, they're using now movement methods to work with the young people when they return home. Throughout the week that they're here, participants do what we call skills workshops every morning. These workshops are repeated. They're the same workshop but with different participants. For example, one of them is burlesque. It's a way of using this dance and costume technique to help young people express themselves physically, become become exaggerated characters of themselves, engage in a dance that's very visual and that's opening your body a lot, especially pushing comfort zones. This one does a little bit, and the people who are going to work in this field with others will have to figure out how far they can go with that movement in their youth work.
So I'm doing a burlesque and theatre workshop that kind of incorporates the elements of burlesque in order to kind of embrace your body confidence and find your authentic self, to work on kind of confidence, theatricality, movement through the medium of burlesque is what I try to do. It was very interesting because every day there's a different energy in the group depending on the ages, the energy since they came through the door even. It changed every time just by the people in the room. It was interesting definitely to teach people who've never even heard of burlesque before. So I got to be their introduction, which was amazing, and to be their kind of first taste of what the world of burlesque can be. And the biggest kind of feedback was generally people just saying, I didn't know all of that kind of existed. I didn't know I could do that kind of thing. I didn't know I could express myself in this kind of way, which is, if I could do something for someone like that, something so small that introduces them to something that they think will help them express themselves is impressive. Like, I'm happy I could do that.
So for example, that's a morning workshop. There are others like ensemble, working in an ensemble, which is using a technique called viewpoints, about being aware of everything that's happening around you, aware of all the movement that's occurring around you, and gradually coming slowly into your own body and your own physicality.
So the workshop is called Movement for the Ensemble, and it's about an individual's own impulses and desires being the focal point in order to create group and ensemble work. Yeah, it's just really interesting to see how different groups of people come together, and each individual within that group brings something completely new and vibrant, I guess. But I think it gives each individual autonomy, that they feel confident in their own physicality and that they feel confident to express themselves.
Then there is a workshop on stage combat, which is about using fun-based martial arts in slow motion and in other speeds to make stories and make narratives. Young people love that one.
So this workshop that I'm presenting here for this session is on stage combat, and it's a particular approach in a very short amount of time about introducing the elements of stage combat for a group that have no stage combat experience, or you have a short time to work. It bases everything working in very slow motion so that they have the opportunity to be pretty creative with it. And it's in addition to kind of introducing stage combat as an element of theatrical storytelling, it really helps to create a sense of ensemble, group dynamic, communication, and to give young actors in particular a chance to actively contribute to the artistic process. So it was really fascinating working with groups from all these different cultures, and especially as they intermixed, because each group had a wide variety of individuals, both of ages and of cultural background. And to see them work in, it proved the fact that the workshop is effective in that we were able to erase cultural and linguistic barriers and even some age barriers about how we work together, because the process was such that it was just, the process is such that that kind of specific communication moves away and you start communicating just purely physically through the body, with each other. So it was really fascinating to watch each group come in, offer some new thoughts, some new ideas in the exploration, but then to see all those cultural barriers just kind of shift and melt away as they started working just physically with each other.
And there's improvisation in the body, which is telling stories physically to one another and using gibberish and using other languages, but not necessarily understanding what's happening, just using your body to do that.
The workshop focuses on the body of the actor. how we tell a story through the body and how we communicate through our bodies and also through language. I focused on improvisational body as a theme. And through 2 hours, we led in with the group a series of exercises that they can use with youth and children in their theaters and in their theater groups. And exercises focused on building a group, building the ensemble, in terms of focusing on each other's bodies and presence in the space. We worked on how to move each other by words and through movement, also the effect on the actor's body on the other actor. And we also visited some simple exercises from improvisational theater, how we can communicate using two different languages, how can we have a very coherent dialogue using one word at a time. So it was a 2 hour workshop that's designed to work with youth and children and even adults on the body and how we improvise it in the space.
So participants sign up for those 2 hour workshops every morning, and then we have lunch, and then they go into 4 other groups. And these groups, they're in fixed groups, so they work with an artist from a different country for the duration of the week. For example, in one group they're working with Khalil from Palestine in making movement theatre that fits into a very narrow space. That concept of not being able to spread into an open space but having to confine yourself while you're making theatre, confine the body, is a very important one for him. Then there's a workshop with Ioana from Greece, which is all about using dance methods and dance techniques for people who have never danced before, in building a group together and in sharing their experience and in their way of working. And then there's one from me. I'm working with people using choral amplification, looking at the subtext of what's happening in a tense scene between people and amplifying that using the chorus. It's also a way of talking about political stories, political ideas based on the personal, based on what's happening personally. And finally, there's a workshop with Juan from Spain, and he is looking at various practitioners from theatre who have used movement as a way of telling stories and expressing oneself in that form.
So we are looking at movement from a perspective of pre-expressive movement, trying to look movements as pure as we can. And we are using extra quotidian, extra daily improvisations so that you cannot anthropomorphize what you are improvising. So we are not using, for example, improvise as a horse, because you can, as a human, as a person, act like a horse, but maybe we're using act like a lentil, act like a hare, and then we are putting all these movements that we are coming up with in the improvisations into these movement pieces in collaboration with the rest of the group.
So people make a piece of work over the course of the week, and then they show it to all of us on the final day in a celebration of the work. So we all get to see what happened and we can talk about it. Having discussions and having conversations afterwards is really important, because we want to share how we made things as well as enlighten or discuss with the audience about what we made.
Just one ship. One ship. And whenever you hear the ship, let's go! And after all this incredible work in front of the beach. See, didn't dare saying this with any.
Meals were in the beautiful surrounds of Pugin Hall. Pugin was an architect from a couple of hundred years ago who designed this building as a cafeteria. He designed some of the other rooms along this corridor, and this was the place where the clerics, as they were called, or seminarians, young men training to be priests, had their meals in past times. Now it's open to the public, but it still retains a lot of the visual effect of being in a seminary, with the portraits all around of various presidents of the university and Catholic iconography and crosses and so on around the room.